Hello, I'm John Ruzek with the University of Minnesota Alumni Association. Thank you for joining us today for this faculty conversation on COVID-19 and its ambiguous losses, how to cope with the stress and anxiety of our current situation. And before I introduce our distinguished faculty member today, just want to say thank you to all the Alumni Association members and friends who make our online outreach possible. And if you'd like to learn more about the University of Minnesota Alumni Association, visit us at umnalumni.org. And it is my just great pleasure to welcome to today's recording Dr. Pauline Boss, who's Professor Emeritus for the Department of Family Social Science at the University of Minnesota. Just one of the most distinguished faculty members at our university, and somebody I've had the pleasure to connect with over the years. Dr. Boss, thank you so much for being here today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, for those of you, or for those who are listening who aren't as familiar with ambiguous loss, would you be willing just to give a brief definition of it and perhaps some examples?
Sure. Ambiguous loss is a term I came up with in the late 1970s for a loss that remains unclear and full of uncertainty. There are no facts about whether the person is alive or dead or where they might be. My research at that time was with the families of the soldiers missing in action in Southeast Asia. So they were physically absent, but kept psychologically present because the families didn't know if they were dead or alive or coming back or not. There's another kind of ambiguous loss, and that is when the person is physically present, but psychologically absent. And that was later research I did with families of loved ones who had Alzheimer's disease. So an ambiguous loss is a loss that's ongoing and without a clear ending. It can't be clarified, cured, or fixed, and therefore it makes us very anxious because we're accustomed to fixing things. And that's the anxiety we're feeling now with COVID-19. We're having a pileup of losses, both financial and psychological, family and community losses, losses of health, losses of funerals and rituals that we ordinarily have had, including graduations and in high school and colleges and so on. Weddings, funerals, all have been canceled. So we have a pileup of ambiguous losses right now due to the pandemic. We've also lost agency and freedom. We can't go out of our homes. We've lost control over our personal and family and work lives. We've lost our relationships as they were in some cases because we can't be together. We've lost some money and financial security. We have lost some feelings of safety too. Even if you go in a grocery store, you're worried about catching the virus. And we've lost physical contact with families and friends and the ability to gather together for worship or sports or concerts, or simply a cup of coffee. And we've lost our community rituals, although I must say church services, for example, are moving to Zoom. But the rituals of going to a sports event, of course, can't be done. And it could be summed up by saying we've lost our trust in the world as a fair and predictable place.
Mm-hmm. So how would one, as we look ahead, how do we go about understanding the anxiety that we're collectively feeling?
Well, first we have to look at ourselves. Some of us are in jobs or careers that require more precision. And if we are more accustomed to solving problems in a precise way, or by having a binary outcome, win or lose, like win a case, as an attorney would say, or lose a case, or if you're an engineer or someone who does precision work and so on, if we are accustomed to solving problems and having control and fixing, then our anxiety spikes when we're faced with a situation that has no clear solution. And boy, we are facing one now, big time. So those of us who are accustomed to having agency, accustomed to being in control, accustomed to curing, to fixing, we will have a higher level of anxiety right now because of the uncertainty. Until our scientists gain more evidence, the situation is one of uncertainty now. So we talk about lowering anxiety. How do we, those of us who are accustomed to fixing, what is required to lower our anxiety and feelings of helplessness? The answer is to shift to both and thinking, to shift away from binary thinking, from absolute thinking, which won't work right now with this particular problem. Until we have more facts, until we have more proof for all the things that are involved in the pandemic, it's a good idea to think both and. I'm both frightened that my daughter, a physician, might again get the virus. She already had it once. And I am hopeful that research eventually will let us know if she is immune. So it's both and. And you might think things like this, it's nothing to worry about, and we're all going to die. That's absolute thinking. You don't want to think that way. What you want to think is both and. It's like this. It's both dangerous and I can manage it. It's both a terrible time and a time to come together for the greater good. It both separates us now, and I feel there is more community coming, more feelings of community coming. I'm both home alone now and also connected to others with technology. And it's important for you to make up your own both and statements. Obviously, this is relative thinking. It's non-binary thinking, which helps in situations where there are no clear-cut answers. I do not want people to think this way for most of our problems. For example, 2 + 2 has to equal 4 no matter what. I happen to be somebody who comes from a background of precision, being a Swiss American, and some absolute thinking and decisiveness. So even for having studied it for 40 years, I have to work hard myself at this both and thinking to see equal sides, conflicting sides, which is closer to the truth than saying, this is terrible, we're all going to die. That's not true. And it's more close to the truth if we say, this is terrible, and we can overcome it eventually. So we find a middle ground. We calm ourselves by letting go of absolute thinking and say it's nothing to worry about versus we're all going to die. Yes, it's both dangerous and manageable. Yes, it's both a terrible time and a time to come together for the greater good. And yes, I'm now home alone and also connected to others. Yesterday, Easter Sunday, my husband and I, both of us over 80, we found Zoom easy to use, and we're connected to our families in other states for a family gathering, even though no one was here physically. It was fun. So we are not helpless. That's what both and thinking, dialectical thinking, teaches us, that we are not helpless. We can move forward more easily if we let go of precise thinking, of absolute thinking. We can stay at home, stay away from groups, stop traveling. help others in our neighborhood. There's a lot we can do. For something you can control, find something you can control in a situation that you can't control, i.e. the pandemic. You can clean the garage, exercise, dance, sing, pray, meditate, do yoga, whatever it is you like to do, but it's very important during this time to do something you can control, excuse me, because the situation is one we can't control just yet. So both end thinking is essential. We are both frightened of the virus, and there is something we can do to help. First of all, of course, stay at home. We can practice self-care, stop watching or reading anxiety-producing news if it upsets you and increases your anxiety. Instead, watch calming films, not films that create more anxiety. My husband and I enjoy a Netflix each evening, often comedy. You can listen to music, you can read books you've been meaning to read or books you read years ago and can reread now. Many people play board games or other kinds of ideas that can ease your anxiety now. So in summary, people who value high mastery and control over their lives may have higher stress now because of the uncertainty caused by all these ambiguous losses. They're unclear and that bothers us. We like clarity. So if you feel this way, name your ambiguous losses. Name the problem ambiguous loss. That helps people to understand that the stressor is not only the virus, but also the many ambiguous losses that have resulted from it. I would recommend you list them for yourself. And sadly, some of you may also have know someone who died, which would be a clear loss rather than an ambiguous loss. However, I must add that even death from the coronavirus is creating ambiguous loss because often the bodies are not given back to the families. And also the families could not be with the person who was dying, nor could they see the body after the person died. This makes grieving very, very complicated because of the ambiguity and uncertainty. There's more to say, but let me just refer you to the book that a lot of people around the world and the country are reading or rereading again. It's called Ambiguous Loss, Learning to Live with Unresolved Grief, Harvard University Press. The hardcover was $19.99. The paperback is $2,000. For those of you who may be therapists yourself or mental health professionals, I recommend Loss, Trauma, and Resilience, Therapeutic Work with Ambiguous Loss, W.W. Norton Publishers, 2006. If you work primarily or if you have in your family someone with dementia, if you're a caregiver, I recommend Loving Someone Who Has Dementia, which is Josie Bass, John Wiley, 2011. They're all available where books are sold. There is also, through the University of Minnesota, a course online about ambiguous loss, its meaning and its application. It's either for continuing education or a certificate. Professionals from a variety of disciplines will find this course valuable, including family therapists, social workers, educators, nurses, psychologists, school and guidance counselors, grief counselors, international humanitarian workers, clergy and pastoral counselors, military support personnel, and healthcare professionals. I'm very pleased that the university put that online because I can't keep going around the world at my age now to train, so the training can be done online. clearly this ambiguous loss, the theory of ambiguous loss has now passed to a second and third generation and is being tested by them, and so far holding up. Additional resources are from family social science. I think the online, the link is given on the slide you are seeing for COVID-19. And then there's another one, the University Family Therapist, another link, and ambiguous loss, helping teens and others cope, another link. And then a very popular on being a care package for uncertain times with Krista Tippett, who does the On Being interviews each week. That's it, I think, for now. I hope these ideas are helpful to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Boss, for sharing your time and expertise on this very relevant topic, both in also, having been exposed to your ambiguous loss research in the past, just how, meaningful it is to understanding our current situation under this pandemic and quarantine as well. So I'm just delighted that you were able to share your time and thoughts with us today on this. And I wish you and your family all the best in the months ahead.
Thank you. I wish the same to all of your listeners.
All right. Thank you so much to Dr. Pauline Boss of the Department of Family Social Science at the University of Minnesota for joining us today. Thank you for listening today. On behalf of the Alumni Association, be well and go Gophers.